Thomas sits on his porch in a Pennsylvania coal town. The wood under his rocking chair groans with every slight movement. The air smells of damp earth and coal dust, a scent that has defined this valley for generations. To his neighbors, he is a pillar of strength and faith. The rhythmic creak of the porch swing mimics the relentless ticking of a clock, counting down to a moment he has dreaded for 4 decades. He stares out at the rolling hills, but he doesn't see the autumn colors. He sees the shadows of a past that refuses to stay buried in the shallow graves of his memory. Inside the house, tucked away in the deepest drawer of a mahogany roll-top desk, sits a dusty velvet box. Inside that box lies a silver star, a gleaming piece of metal suspended from a ribbon of red, white, and blue. To the people of this town, it is a sacred relic of courage from Hill 937. They see it as a testament to a man who ran into the fire while others fled. But to Thomas, that medal is a lead weight. Every time he catches a glimpse of it, he feels the cold pressure against his chest, a physical reminder of a debt he can never truly repay to the man who should have come home instead. Life in the coal town is measured by the tolling of the Baptist church bells and the warmth of Thanksgiving tables. On Sundays, Thomas sits in the third pew, singing hymns about grace and mercy that echo through the rafters. The smell of roasting turkey and cranberry sauce usually brings a sense of comfort. Yet, beneath the peaceful surface, the internal echoes of 1968 never stop ringing. The quiet of a Pennsylvania afternoon is often shattered by the phantom sound of rotors and the smell of spent shells. While the town sees a man at peace, Thomas lives in a perpetual state of combat, fighting a war that never ended, hidden behind a mask of small-town normalcy. The silence is broken by the sound of boots on the steps. His grandson, barely 20 and looking sharp in his crisp ROTC uniform, stands there with wide-eyed admiration. The boy is working on a school project and asks for the story behind the Silver Star. He wants to know about the bravery and the moment Thomas became a legend. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. To the boy, his grandfather is a giant, a statue of American grit. But the question acts like a knife to Thomas's conscience, twisting in the wound. Thomas closes his eyes, and suddenly, he isn't on the porch anymore. The Pennsylvania breeze is replaced by the suffocating heavy heat of the Ashau Valley. He can smell the thick odor of diesel fuel mixed with the rot of the jungle floor. He is young again, 19 years old and terrified. The canopy above is so dense it swallows the light, leaving the soldiers in a green-tinted twilight where every shadow is a threat. He remembers the weight of his pack and the bone-deep realization that he was a child playing a man's game in a place that devoured the innocent. The memory is interrupted by the mailman dropping a white envelope onto the wooden side table. It's from a woman named Sarah, the daughter of the man Thomas supposedly saved. She writes that she is coming to town and wants to meet before the local Veterans Day parade begins. She wants to hear how her father died a hero. Thomas stares at the letter, his hands shaking so violently the paper rattles in the wind. The town sees a statue of a hero, carved in stone and polished for the world to admire. Thomas sees a ghost, pale and demanding, and that ghost is finally tired of being quiet. I remember the mud more than the fire. It was a soup that tried to pull your boots off with every step, smelling of stagnant water. I remember the way the air tasted like copper, part blood, part spent brass, part the metallic tang of pure fear that coats your tongue and refuses to be swallowed. They tell you in training that you'll find a hidden reserve of courage when the moment of truth arrives, but they don't tell you that fear is a physical thing. It's a cold hand that wraps around your throat and squeezes until your vision blurs. We were on a night patrol in the Ashau Valley, just shadows moving through a wall of suffocating green, and the silence of the jungle was louder than any explosion. Then, the world simply tore open. It wasn't a calculated charge. I was a 19-year-old boy who wanted to disappear into the damp earth. When the tracers started cutting through the heavy leaves, I didn't see a tactical objective. I saw a way out. My best friend, Sarah's father, was pinned down just a few yards away. He called my name, his voice cracking with a raw desperation that still wakes me up at 3 in the morning. I had the angle. I had the cover. I could have reached him. But when the choice came, stay and fight or crawl toward the extraction zone, I chose my own skin. I stayed low, I stayed hidden, and I let the jungle take him while I searched for a patch of sky where a Huey might appear. The military bureaucracy is a hungry machine, and that week in 1968, it was starving for a success story. The morale back home was rotting, and the generals needed a face to put on a press release, a name to pin a medal on to justify the bodies coming home in boxes. They saw me, the lone survivor of a decimated squad, and they didn't want the truth of a panicked scramble. They wrote a story that never happened. They called it a valiant rearguard action. They said I had braved enemy fire to provide cover for my brothers. I was too broken, too hollowed out by the shame of what I had actually done, to find the words to correct them. So, I took the medal, I took the handshakes and the parade. For 40 years, I've played the part of the veteran. Every thank you for your service has been a strike against my soul. A reminder that the respect I receive is stolen property, taken from a dead man. I've walked through this town for 4 decades wearing a garment made of lies, and it has grown heavier with every passing season. The weight is heaviest at the dining room table during Thanksgiving. I look at my daughter's face, my grandson sitting tall in his uniform, and my wife as she bows her head in prayer. They see a man of faith, a rock of the community, a hero who survived the crucible. I see an intruder, a thief sitting in a dead man's chair. I sit there, the roasted turkey turning to ash in my mouth, feeling like a ghost haunting my own life. Stories like these aren't just about the past. They are about the truth we owe to those we love. If you believe that honor is earned through honesty, you belong here with us. I watch my grandson's eyes light up with pride when I mention the valley, and the guilt is a physical pain. I want to scream the truth, to tear down the facade, but the words stay trapped behind my teeth, held back by the fear of losing the only world I have left. The knock at the door isn't loud, but in the quiet of the house, it sounds like a gunshot. Sarah stands there on the porch, her coat damp from the Pennsylvania mist. She doesn't have the grateful smile I've seen on so many faces. She doesn't offer a handshake or a word of praise. Instead, she holds a weathered photograph of her father, the man I left in the Ashau Valley. Her eyes are sharp and dark, searching mine for something I haven't been able to find in 40 years. She looks at the house, at the life I've built on a lie, and then she looks back at me. Her voice is steady, but it carries the weight of a lifetime of questions. She doesn't ask about the medal. She holds the picture up and asks the one question that cuts through 40 years of silence. Why did you come home? And he didn't. The silence in the hallway felt like a physical weight, thick with the scent of autumn rain and old wood. Thomas stepped back, gesturing for Sarah to enter his home, a sanctuary built on a foundation he now knew was hollow. They sat in the kitchen, the space where so many family memories had been lovingly forged over coffee, now transformed into a quiet courtroom. A single lamp cast long, distorted shadows across the linoleum. Thomas gripped a ceramic mug, watching the steam rise in a frantic dance before vanishing into the chilled air. The rhythmic tick of the wall clock sounded like a hammer against a nail. Sarah did not look away. Her gaze was a steady tether, pulling the truth from the darkest corners of his soul that had hidden for so long. The words had lived as a leaden mass in his chest, a poison he had swallowed to survive. But as he looked at the photograph of his best friend, the dam finally broke. He didn't talk about tactical movements. He talked about the choice. He told her how the gunfire had sounded like the world was tearing apart, and how, in that moment of blinding terror, the hero the town loved had died before he ever left the mud. He confessed that he hadn't stayed to pull her father to safety. He had heard his name called, a desperate plea, and he had turned his back to find a patch of sky. The Silver Star was a medal for a man who didn't exist. He was just a boy who had been too afraid to be the hero everyone in town wanted. He expected her to scream or to walk out into the rain. Instead, Sarah reached into her pocket and pulled out a yellowed piece of paper. It was her father's own final letter, written by a small flashlight just hours before that patrol began. As she read the words aloud, her voice remained steady, cutting through the quiet, heavy atmosphere of the room. Her father had written about the fear that hung over the jungle like a shroud. He wrote that if anything happened, he wanted Thomas to know he understood the weight they all carried. He explicitly forgave Thomas for the fear he knew was coming, telling him to live a good life and find genuine peace regardless of what the jungle demanded of them. The next morning, the Pennsylvania mist clung to the rolling hills of the cemetery. Thomas walked with a steady pace he hadn't felt in years. The weight of the lie finally lifted. They stood before a simple headstone, the grass wet against his boots. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small blue velvet box containing the Silver Star. He didn't leave it on the granite. Instead, he took Sarah's hand and placed the medal into her open palm. It wasn't his to keep. By giving it to her, he was finally honoring his best friend, the man who had truly earned the right to be remembered. The metal felt light now, no longer an anchor of shame dragging him into the darkness of the past. As the morning sun began to crest over the coal mines and the steeples of the town, the light transformed the landscape. The shadows that had haunted the creaky front porch for decades were chased away by a golden clarity. Thomas returned to his swing, but the ticking of his watch no longer felt like a countdown. He had lost the legend of the hero, but he had gained the reality of a man of deep truth. He looked out over the quiet Pennsylvania valley, knowing his grandson would eventually hear the whole, true story. A story of a flawed man who found his way back through the darkness. Integrity isn't simply the absence of failure. It is the courage to stand tall in the light of truth. Integrity. God bless you, and God bless America.